We're not going to be building a client app from scratch in this course. This is because I assume that you know how to build a Vue.js SPA already, and so I don't want to waste time going over the basics again. So I've gone and laid down the main structure of the client app already. However, a lot of the features, like the application state and authentication, don't work yet. So those are the parts that we'll obviously be implementing together. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to give you a very brief tour of the main aspects of the client app in its current state, so that you can be somewhat familiar with it before we begin adding more code. A good place to start is here in the main.js file. This is largely set up in the standard way for a Vue CLI 3 project. So for example, you'll see that we've got a router and a store on our Vue instance, and that we're rendering a component called app as the root component. Now, one thing that is not standard in this project is the inclusion of Vuetify. Now, you probably heard of Vuetify and maybe you've used it, but if not, it's a component library for Vue.js that implements the material design standard. I decided to use Vuetify because it makes it really easy to create a good-looking, responsive layout and to include a lot of useful widgets which Vuetify supplies out of the box, like cards and buttons, tabs, and so on. I also think Vuetify is quite suitable for enterprise apps, as it's based on a very thorough spec, plus it's well tested and maintained. Looking now at the root component, app.vue, you can see a few of the Vuetify layout components here, like v-app, v-content, v-container. Now these are being used to create the basic layout structure. We've also got some custom components in here, like sticky nav, fixed nav, and the page footer. And right in the middle here, we've got our router view component, which is where all of our views get rendered. Looking at the live app now, you can see that structure pretty well reflected in how the page looks. So that's the sticky nav up there, here's the fixed nav, and in this part of the page is where our views will get rendered, and here's the footer. And of course, all this layout is supported by those Vuetify layout components. Coming now to our router file, you'll see here how we're mapping the different paths of the app to the different pages of the app. And we call these different pages views. So we have a home view here, we have an item view, cart view, and several other ones. Now these all correspond to a component over here in the views directory. So let's open up one now. So we'll open up home.vue. And you can see that we've set this up in much the same way that we did the app component. That is to say, we've got some of the basic Vuetify layout components here, as well as some custom components in here, like this one, item summary. Now, any component that isn't used as a view will be here in our custom components directory here. And these are all the components that we use to create our composable layouts. So there's quite a few in here, and we'll be getting familiar with many of these as the course progresses. And finally, we have various other files in the app, including some mixins. We've got a store here, and we also have a variety of helper files, like a file here for constants. We have one for filters and some other general helpers. And we'll be getting familiar with many of these as the course progresses. All right, with that, you now have a pretty good understanding of the Printbay client app in its current state. And now we're ready to start adding some new features.